It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. Featuring Decorum and East of West. And East of West. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. Featuring Decorum and East of West.
Oops. Failure. Welcome, friends. You're here for another episode of the Indie Comic Show that's still unnamed with my boys Skip and Tosh, here to bring the real talent and for me to ride on his coattails. Skip, I'm so glad, as always, that you can be here. I look forward to doing this every other week with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, how's everything going back there on my coattails? Are you hanging on tight? Are you hydrated?
It's tough,
you
man,
got
because you're
skid
flying
marks?
fast, and my hands, those knuckles, they get sore from gripping.
You can always climb into the back of the truck bed. You don't have to be back there. I'm getting lonely up here. As a matter of fact, please join me.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe if you pull over and stop for a second.
I don't know if I can stop, but maybe I can slow down a little bit. How about that?
Oh man, I don't know what happened to the music, but it's indie comic shows. We don't have CNN's production values, so we do what we can. And you guys didn't want to wait any longer anyway, so we got to get right into the show. We got quite a few people going in here tonight already. It looks like FF2 is the first one in. And we got Comic Quirks with Jimmy. We got Zach, Richmond, Tehillim, Dragon Majesty's in the house. I also see Joe Corallo's here. Good to see you, Joe. He's also a friend of the channel. And then Zach Richards is in the house. There's quite a few Zachs we got. So, how's your week going?
Well, if we're gonna be honest, I have had a very difficult and tough and rough week.
Oh, no.
Especially last week. It's been very difficult. Some of the, worst things in life that you don't want to have to deal with is what Skip is dealing with today. But I will say this. I had an okay Sunday night. It was fairly quiet. I got to spend Sunday with my daughters, which is always a blessing. We got to round up WandaVision together, and then I started them on Falcon and Winter Soldier. So we enjoyed our time together. And then I came home, got to read some comics, and I was winding down, and I kind of woke up a little weird, but an angel by the name of Justin Greenwood responded to one of my texts and gave me one of the most encouraging talks and conversations and insight and all these things to light a fire under me for all my creative endeavors and just in life in general. So as crazy as my week was, my Monday couldn't have started off any better. And then after that, I was like, I made a little meme or a little remix of the thumbnail that you were proposing for the criminal cast. So
that was so hilarious. That was so hilarious. I'm gonna save that for the actual cast on Wednesday, so you guys will get to see the hilariousness that the Skip came up with in our behind the scenes channel.
How was yours? How was your week?
Oh, it was pretty good. Got some new comics. It was kind of leisurely, actually. Got to read some good comics. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't really exciting, but nothing negative happened really. So I count that as a win.
Awesome.
So, man, we're getting close to the end of Decorum. This is the second to the last issue.
Yeah.
What do you? I know we're gonna go into the details of it, but how are you feeling? You feel like one more issue is gonna wrap this with a bun?
I'll say this. This is something that's interesting about a lot of what I've read from Hickman, which I've read about 75% of his 70 to 75% of his work. It almost always feels that way. And then you get to the last issue, and yeah, you're like, how is he gonna pay all of this off? And he always finds a way to do it. Um, maybe excluding a current series that he's writing right now, but that's a whole nother thing. But everything that's already in the books that he's done that I've read, he's always found a way to put a bow on it, and better than majority of writers that are out there these days. Not all, but better than majority. So I am feeling probably like you're feeling. Like, how are you going to wrap this up in one more? But I do have faith, so we'll see. How are you feeling about it?
Well, I'm very much enjoying it, very much. And this
Mhm.
issue in particular, very much liked. It sort of took a hard turn to home field or to home base, to use a baseball reference. If our buddy Eric was here, that's for him. That's for you, Eric. I never forget about you. It feels like, oh, okay, this it's kind of a bittersweet because I'm really enjoying this book and I don't want it to end. Like I'm like, this should be 32 issues, not 8 issues. It's, we complain so much about like writing for the trade or decompression, which I think is even worse. And this is a case where I almost wish that were the case. Like I just want it to be this Snyder cut of this.
Yeah.
I want the 4 times longer because, good things you don't want to end. That's just the way of,
Right.
so.
You also must want Mike Huddleston to die, because I don't see how he could do another 4 issues of all of this art, like let alone another 30, like another 30 something. Like this guy, like I don't know how he still has breath in his body. He is bleeding onto the iPad or the page. I'm sure he's doing a combination of both. No wonder. I'm sure. I mean, like I've obviously heard, different things of Hickman sometimes turning in scripts late and whatnot, which are only rumors, so I don't want to pass it along too much. But
Sure.
At the same time, I can't see how when they signed up, they agreed and stone that he was going to try to pump out one of these a month or even one of these every 2 months, because there's just way too much sauce in here. He's doing various different styles. He's doing some digital, some painted, some on paper with pens. He's coloring this thing. Like, shout out to Russ Wooten doing the lettering, and who is also a Herbie Hancock fan like mine. Thank you for that little conversation on Twitter, Russ. But Mike is, showing having a master class in how you can take a book beyond just basic modern day comic book art. So it's mind boggling to me that he's even keeping pace now. This is pretty impressive.
Yeah. The only thing I can suspect, and again, I think we'll talk more about this when we actually start going through the book, but I feel that the diverse art styles that he has in this book is lending maybe to that hard deadline crunch, because he'll do some pages that are just breathtaking and mind-blowing and be like, wow. But then there's some other pages that are just, I don't want to say scribble, because that sounds negative, but definitely on the lighter sketch, quicker type of thing. And this is a technique that manga artists use quite a bit to kind of facilitate their crazy. You talk about crunch times. These guys, man, put out hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
So, and I think, at first it kind of threw me off because I'm so used to the Western style and so much a fan of it that I was like, oh, what is this? But as I started going through, I was like, well, he won me over. And another thing with being an independent comic, I think you have great opportunities. I don't mind if you take a month off to catch up. I don't think that's a great idea for a business to be doing that all the time, because not everyone is forgiving as I am. So, be consistent, put your book out. But at the same time, it's not like, a Marvel or a DC kind of title where it's just got to be, you just take some time if you need a breather. I think most fans of these type of books are more concerned about the quality over quantity anyway. If you're buying a book like Decorum, you're not buying it because you just need your monthly fix of pulp fiction. You are buying it because it's, for lack of a better description, it's a highbrow book. What are you drinking tonight?
I am fresh off the basketball court, right into the fire that is this unnamed indie comic show. So I am slamming down some Gatorade, trying to get some electrolytes in my body and ice in my knee and thumb as we're up here talking these sweet books.
All right. Very good. What's
you
your flavor of Gatorade?
I am a Gatorade connoisseur, so I definitely, try my hand at quite a few flavors. But today, so as to not upset my stomach with the red dye, I went with the Glacier Freeze, so the light blue flavor.
Glacier Freeze. I'm a traditionalist. I tried some of these newfangled flavors occasionally of Gatorade, and they're okay. But I like the old school. I think my favorite is old school citrus. Super hard to find. And I also like orange.
Okay.
And then there's grape and original flavor, and they're all good. I like all the originals. But yeah, Gatorade.
Classics.
Yeah. I'm drinking some wine tonight because with highbrow comics, you need to drink something you can extend your pinky on. And I just figured, why not?
Yeah, no, I'm with it. Are we going with the red? Are we going with the white?
It is. It's a red.
How are we going?
I mostly drink reds. I'm not a bit. 9 times out of 10, it's red for me. Occasionally, I can drink a white wine. I like white wine with fish, and I mostly only drink wine with meals. But if I do drink, most of the time I'm pairing it with steak. If I have a good steak, I have to have a wine. This is just a red blend. This is that Walking Dead wine, which I know people mock me for, but it's actually pretty good. And because it's old now, it's like 2015 vintage. It's actually upped its quality probably rather than when it came out in 2015. It was probably crap. But it's had some time to sit and ferment and age, and that's one of the tricks about wine for those of you guys that don't know. It's age is the key, and that's what you're really paying for. I mean, obviously some kind of wines are better than others, better quality grapes, better vineyards, etc. But a big key is that aging. And a lot of the cheap wines, if you look at them, they're just like a year or two old, and that's why they're cheap. And then I'm drinking water on top of that. Gave myself a new quarter's resolution, if you will. That's for the new quarter of the year. To drink more water. It's good for you. And I just don't drink enough of it. So I think I'm on my third. I have one of those stainless steel thermoflask bottles, and I'm on my third one today. So yay me, doing something good for myself.
Sucking on some life juice, huh?
Yeah. It's amazing like how much you soda is one of my vices. I never really do drugs, and it sounds like I'd probably drink a lot, but I have like a beer on a stream or a glass of wine, and so people hear me, it's like, oh, Ash is always drinking, but otherwise I'm not drinking. So I rarely am drinking alcohol, but soda is that's my bad vice, and if I don't start tailoring it down and just easing off the throttle and drinking a lot more water as I'm getting older, I'm going to risk losing my ability to drink soda at all. I don't want that to happen.
I'm with you. I went to dinner with some friends here and went over there, and they had some red wine out. So actually they made fish, but it was red wine with fish. And of course, one of them wanted to listen to UB40 red wine. So
That's awesome.
I obliged, and and we drank red wine while listening to red wine and eating fish, and it was pretty glorious. And I took him some comics because that's what I do. My buddy, he's a big Sergio Aragonis fan.
Oh,
I did buy like the whole solo series that DC had done some years ago, but I ended up forgetting to take him the Sergio Aragonis one, and I took him a few extra copies of American Flag that I had laying around because I've been collecting those. Got to catch them all. Got to catch them all.
yeah. I need to discover Chaikin. That's something that's I just is I've bypassed all my years. I kind of I should probably check him out and see what I'm missing. But I am also a Sergio Aragones fan. I have most all the Gru comics up through the 90s until I got out of comics, and then I think he did some stuff with Dark Horse, and I think some stuff with Image that I don't have. I need to backfill, but I have all the originals going back to the original Pacific Comics #1. Love that. And by the way, I meant to talk to you. I'll just do this on the air. There is a 3 comic set of his that aren't really officially a set, but they are that he did. One is called I think it's called Destroying the DC Universe, which I do have that one. Then he's got Massacring the Marvel Universe, and then Stomping the Star Wars Universe. And my goal.
The first 2 you talked to me about before, the Star Wars one I hadn't heard about. And you said you have a goal?
Oh, I have the DC one. I have a goal to collect those 3. They're just hard to find because they're just little one-shot books that came out like 10 years ago. And comic book stores tend to not stock that stuff. So I'm kind of putting that out there. If anyone can find the Marvel one or the Star Wars one for me, hit me up, because I am looking for those 2 books, and I want to collect all 3 of them, maybe get them framed, because I love that it's Sergio Aragones, and I love that it's also him doing things that I love, which is Star Wars, Marvel, and DC. So it's kind of a double representation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned him and Image. I know, like, talking about the 6 degrees of separation. And shout out to Eric Breen in the chat. Read First Comics. Yes, this line came. The original line of American Flag came out on First Comics, and so those are the ones that I'm collecting. But like right now, if you were the American Flag is on Comixology, so if you have Comixology account, or if you have Amazon Prime, you can get Comixology, I think, for $6 if you have Amazon Prime. It's a really good deal. The American Flag collected edition is on there, but it's funny because Dynamite Comics now like got the rights to distribute it, but at one certain time Image Comics had it, and I went to a different local comic shop than I normally do, and they have like a bunch of half off trades. So I was in there and I found like various things. Like I found the first Hickman book that he did for Marvel, like hardcover, and I found the issue #1 there, so I grabbed that. I grabbed volume 1 and 2 of Hickman Shield hardcover, so I grabbed those. But as I was looking, my eyes scanned and I saw this Image hardcover, and it was like one of the early ones back in the day where it was just like some of everybody, like Silvestri and Larson's art and all of that stuff together. So I kind of like hid that behind some books to get it later. But they had American Flag, the image published, and I grabbed those, and I was like, ooh, I didn't know if I was gonna find these, and they were half off because they were back there. So instead of paying like eBay prices or whatever, I was able to find them for half off each. So I grabbed volume 1 and 2. So I'm feeling pretty pumped about my my American Flag collection that I got going on right now. And shout out to Comics Quirks Jimmy, which I didn't post the video yet, but I went on my Twitch channel. I opened up a gift that he had sent me, and he sent me an art book by Howard Chaykin, and I just about fell over on the live stream because Jimmy knows I love me some Chaykin.
Oh yeah. Now, do you like Kentucky Fried Chaykin, or do you like grilled Chaykin?
I like Popeye's Chaykin.
Popeye's Chaykin. Oh, there we go. Even better.
Yeah, man. Popeye's Chaykin is fucking awesome.
I like Church's Chaykin myself.
Church is Shaking is pretty good. They
They
got
don't.
some he's got some good okra
They,
over
they
around
don't
them
have it
parts.
down here in San Diego. I'm sad.
Oh, really? There's only like a few places up here in Sacramento. I think I don't think they got themselves one of them chicken Sammys in time, so they've been getting beat up by everybody. They better hop on the chicken Sammy train before they get
uh,
left behind.
that's true. That's true.
2021 takes no prisoners, let me tell you.
Oh man. Oh, here we are talking about chicken. Yeah, I for whatever reason, I skipped this American Flag when I was young, and I mean I kind of know why. This felt like my dad's comics, not for me. But now that I'm old and stuff, I feel like I want to check this out, and the fact that you like it helps add some credentials to it. So, um, yeah. Yeah. And it looks like I can get it Comixology Unlimited, which, by the way, you don't need Amazon. Just for a clarification to the audience, you don't need Amazon Prime to get the Unlimited. $5.99 for anybody if you're interested in it. I recommend it. Try it for a month. It costs you the price of one Batman comic, and you can have a whole month of the Comixology Unlimited. Try it out. You can binge all sorts of books. If you're like me, if you don't like reading comics on your phone or your computer, I get that. Get yourself a tablet, a 10-inch. Get yourself at least a 10-inch screen, I recommend. And you don't need the most expensive iPad or anything. You know, if you can get one of those, then fantastic. I'm not going to tell you not to, but I recommend to people all the time. Wait, Amazon has deals regularly for their 10-inch HD Fire tablet. You can get them for like under $100. And I use my iPad more than any other device, even my phone, because I read all my comics on it. I consume YouTube videos. I consume Netflix on it. I can, in bed. And it's just great. When I'm cooking dinner, I can bring it with me and pop it down and, have a mobile TV kind of, it's just fantastic for a media consumption device. Anyways, not here to shill for Amazon, but you can read a lot of books and save yourself a lot of money. Speaking of reading a lot of books, we're going to get into the main books here in a sec. Are there any new indie books that you've read in the past 2 weeks since the last show that might just have crossed your mind or just on your radar?
Yeah, so many actually. Let's see, Silver Coin, over by well, this one was Chip Zdarsky and Mike Walsh, I guess, but I get it's funny, like the more I talk about anthologies, the more I start to like I see anthologies are coming out more and more, and especially horror based ones. So yeah, a kind of music related horror based comic that was pretty cool. Check it out. I liked it. I saw Nalo talking about it, and then I went and I happened to. I usually don't read reviews about comics before I like buy them. I like if I get some word of mouth and they kind of seem the premise seems interesting, I'll just dive in. I really ended up liking this, especially since I'm reading Ice Cream Man, which is another uh indie book that's pretty much my favorite indie book these days. So I read that. I'm slowly going through that, kind of out of order in a way, but I don't really care. Geiger, I read Geiger. I enjoy that. That was pretty solid. Trying to like flip through. I didn't get to Proctor Valley yet, but Grant Morrison. I grabbed Gunning for Hits #1, another music horror type book. I'm a musician, so like between like Phonogram, I got like the hardcover phonograms from a buddy, sent them to me, and then I got Gunning for Hits, and then I got the Silver Coin thing. So I'm just reading tons of like music. I'm behind on it, but still reading through Homesick Pilot. So I guess like reading music related comics right now is a thing. Anybody who's in there right now, timestamp this and mark this because that's going to be very relevant in about a year. Just saying. Besides that, oh gosh, I've been reading like a lot of the books aren't like even around me. I know I read some digital ones, but I got like all my show stuff up in front of me. So yeah, and of course going through Chake, and like I said, I'm still reading through American Flag. I feel like there's one I did start reading some Star Reach today. Going back to Chake, well, one I love me some Jim Starlin. Everybody knows it's my favorite comic writer of all time. If you've been checking out this show long enough, I finally read through some of the first Star Reach. And what else is cool about that is that the first appearance of Cody Starbuck, another Howard Chaykin creation, is in that book as well. So I got to get some of that flavor in me. And man, it's hard. Like, I'm reading so many indie books, it's hard to not let all of them just kind of slip through my fingers. But I'll leave it there for now. Ash, what about yourself? What are some indie books that
Well,
you've
I'm not
been
reading
reading?
as many as you are, that's for sure. But
Okay.
I did pick up Geiger. This is a book I was very excited for because I'm a big Jeff Johns fan. Um, Gary Frank, they're reuniting with him. They last teamed up for Doomsday Clock. People may remember. It was the most popular comic of the year that it came out, and for all 12 issues. um, for the 3 years that it was out, we should say. It had a lot of delays, but it was a good book. I love Jeff Johns. I was very curious to see what he would be doing in the indie field because all I know from him is DC. And I think his DC stuff embodies DC in my mind, but I have no idea, like, what are you going to do when you're doing something random? So I did a video. I won't go too much into this book because I did a video on it. You can see my review. I also got the second issue of Noctera, which I enjoyed even more than the first issue. This is a book that I'm very excited about. It's this one, the world building opened up a lot more, and it, without really spoiling anything, it kind of alludes to what's happening and why the world is dark and why everyone's turning into beasts and things like that. And this might actually be mystical, not scientific, if you will. This might be a heaven and hell type thing. I don't know. They don't actually say, but they allude to some stuff and makes it more interesting. They really up the ante. It really upped the horror vibe to me, which I'm enjoying. And those are the two big ones. I'm kicking myself. I still haven't read my Firepower issue yet. So I think I'm going to hold off until closer to showtime next week because we'll be doing Firepower next week. Have you read
Okay.
Firepower
Well,
yet?
I did because I wasn't sure if we were going to do Decorum or Firepower. So
Oh,
I read
sorry.
Firepower as soon as I got it.
Sorry. Yeah. We'll be doing Firepower next week, guys. Decorum and Firepower are now releasing on the same week. So it's tough, but it's good because every showtime will have one book to talk about, at least until Decorum ends. And hopefully Firepower is not going to end anytime soon because I love that book. Yeah.
Oh, I
Right.
did read a little bit of Solid Blood too.
Oh,
Finally,
I
I didn't finish it.
I got that book. I was so excited to get it because my store got me a copy, and then I just filed away in my in my books, and I didn't even read it. I need to go
It's
dig that
fun.
out.
It's nice, like feeling like the OG like comic book paper and stuff, like again, but on a newer book. I mean, I still obviously since I'm reading some older books, I kind of already get that feel, but it's just it's funny to get like a very modern, like looking and colored cover, and then like you look at the book from the side and it's super thin, and then you open it up and you're like, oh yeah, like the old newspaper paper inside. This is kind of cool.
Nice.
Um, I don't even know if I like it or not yet, but we'll see by the end. I hope I do because it'd be nice to like, you know, another book by Robert Kirkman, not just Firepower. But I can't
Well,
force myself to like him, so we'll see.
Solid Blood, from what I understand, just one issue. So I don't think you're gonna have to worry about.
Oh, it's just one? I thought they just did that thing where they just started on that 17 or whatever to be weird,
No.
but it's just a straight up one shot.
Now it could be a gimmick like they did once upon a time with. Oh, I'm struggling to remember. It was the dog, Science Dog.
Hmm.
He had this book called Science Dog that he would only do as like a backstory on, was it Walking Dead? One of his books. And it was like every like 25 issues or something, some anniversary that they would do a Science Dog. So they did it on Oblivion Song, as a matter of fact. I think it was on the issue 25 of Oblivion Song, big double-size issue. They put a Science Dog, essentially a comic book inside there. So it's an extra thick, and that's kind of like the gimmick thing. So like this, you get these science dog stories periodically throughout the Kirkman comics. It's weird. So maybe they're doing something like that where there'll be some promotion and it'll be like, hey, here's, you know, whatever issue number 18. You're like, oh, okay, weird. I don't know. Looks like there's a lot of love going on in the chat right now. Glad you guys are.
I definitely love Tehillim talking about some Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro, Hokuto Sinkten versus Nanto Sweet Chokin, baby. I love me some Fist of the North Star.
Nice. All right. I'm gonna have to get into some manga sometime here soon because my time's opening up. Marvel and DC is going, we don't want your business. Go, feel free to leave the nest and go other places. And I'm like, all right, give me some indies, baby.
They're there for.
Yeah. So, I guess we can get to the regular book that we're supposed to talk about before we just turn this into a hangout stream. Tonight's comic, ladies and gentlemen, is Decorum, issue number 7. I hope you guys are reading it. This is a good book to challenge yourself with. It is very much hard sci-fi book. It's very much Jonathan Hickman at his most Hickman-y, I guess. Now, Skip can correct me if I'm wrong because he's much more knowledgeable about the author than I am, but that's what it feels like to me, at least. And I like it. I wasn't sure what to think about it when the first issue came out. Then I talked to our good friend Nalo, and he said it was like his favorite book. And so I sat down, had a conversation. I was like, why? Explain to me why it's your favorite book. And he just got into how it just really encouraged him on the chunkiness of it to read it, you know, slowly and methodically, page by page, and really digest what's being said. He's looking for like this, you know, every little detail in the art to give clues about the greater things that are going on. And he even explained to me why he liked the top ramen white page, which was just a top ramen recipe that I was making fun of. And I was like, you know what? I'm sold. I buy into this. This is actually really good. Like for $3.99, I got a good probably hour's worth of enjoyment, and actually more because I'm going to go back and read this all again. In fact, I'm on the next issue, which is the final issue. I'm going to binge the whole series again for that final issue and really hope that I can make better sense of it. But I'm the kind of guy that I like not completely getting something the first time. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Matrix. And the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's fun. Kung fu, sci-fi, you know, living in a virtual world, thumbs up. But then as I saw it many more times, each time it like rubbed off new ideas that were buried into this story that the Wachowskis are very much overlooked as how well read they are as far as philosophy and science fiction, or just science in general. And there's so much in there. I'm not going to turn this into a Matrix stream, but this is why I like it. Sorry, I can just get long in the tooth. Skip, do you want to give us a synopsis of Decorum scene by scene?
Yeah, I could do that. Being that I cut my teeth in the review game earlier on years ago. Did you see what I did there?
Oh.
So clever, aren't I? Yeah, a little synopsis. We will go through scene by scene. We pick up naturally in this book where we left off. I like to highlight something about Jonathan Hickman.
Sure.
I'm going to be doing this during the series, during our segment that we will be covering East of West as well. The title of the name, the name is the title of the book of the name. Okay, Inception. The Egg That Broke a World is the title for this particular issue. We jump right in, and it is the Sister Ma who is speaking to basically some machines, or look like part organic, part machines, and they're kind of data mining, giving her an idea of, kind of what the process was for the that motherhood of all the different mothers and everything that had kind of been, sitting on the egg, if you will, like hens, so to speak. and they were talking about the analysis that they used to kind of get down to the best way to protect the egg, and giving Sister Ma an idea of her chances now of finding the egg, since the Sisterhood of Assassins had been contracted by Chiro Cheese and Godhood and their whole thing over there, to help find the egg. And they said that there was about a 5% chance of them finding it, and they presented that to Sister Ma as good news. She was like, "What the heck are you talking about? Only 5%?" They're like, "It's a big galaxy, like give us a break." They said, but it is going to take some luck, and so she went ahead and just let the put the word out to all the sisters. So it seems like they were in a time of kind of like relaxation and resting before everything kind of hit the fan. So some of them were out there getting their getting manicures and pedicures, and eating ramen if you're Niha, and reading a book by the fire and sipping some tea if you're Madame Morley. And the word got put out, so everybody kind of jumped to action.
All right. So one of my things was, I don't remember these brain people. Is that just me having a old timer moment, or who are these brain people?
This was our first introduction to them. We had not seen them before.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better about myself. So this was confusing to me when I have to admit, when I first started watching it or reading it, and because I was stuck on like, who are these? I don't remember. But this is some of that art that you talk about that I just love. Who does the coloring on this book?
It's all Mike Huddleston. He's doing everything.
That explains it. Explains it. Yeah, this is not even his best stuff, but this is just gorgeous. The composition and the framing that he has, I'm very much into where the story is going at this point, but it really picks up, I think, from here. I like how everyone sort of just gets the memo. She hits the button, and we see all the different people, doing the various things, and it's like, doo-doo-doo-doo. It's on. It's game time, and that clues you in as the reader, like, oh, okay, shit's getting real.
Totally. Yeah, for me, this was very much kind of a Minority Report moment. That's kind of, the sci-fi that I feel like that they pulled from, where they have their, like I said, their brains, part organic, part machine, or I guess in Minority Report, it was organic life forms hooked up to machines. And, that's kind of what they provided, was information and intel, like, in Minority Report is more on the precog term. Here it was kind of crunching numbers for analysis. But that's kind of where I feel like they got the inspiration for that scene from, personally, when I read it.
Very nice. All right. Yeah, I can see that now that you kind of point that out. So let's go on the next scene.
So in the next scene, of course, Niha, as she wrapped up her ramen noodles, just as I would. You don't want to rush that. Even when you get an important message, you can't let a drop of that juice, go to waste. So she wrapped up her ramen, was walking out and about, and she saw like a nice little shiny ring. She's coming into money now. She's been doing some gigs. She's got a little bit. Doesn't seem like she's quite made enough to get her family out of the freezer, so to speak, because as we remember, that's her ultimate mission. And I want to make sure that we make that a point to remember that her family has an illness. They are in some sort of cryostasis, and her main objective throughout all of this is to make enough money to pay to get them out of there and also get them the cure. So as she's walking out and about, a little ring just kind of shines in a window. She takes a look at it off in the distance. There's a purse snatcher, and the dude grabs the lady's purse, bumps into the back of Niha. She smashes her nose and her face into the front of the glass, falls back, gets a little woozy, falls onto the hood of a car. Guy yells at her. She pulls her sidearm out on him. He hits the brakes, so she flies off the hood of the car over into a dumpster area by a bunch of trash, walks up, still a little woozy, steps on a crack, seems like thin ice because she goes right through it. Now all of a sudden she's in this underwater world, but as she's looking, there's this big old red, kind of gem looking rhombus shaped thing. She swims up to the top, gains some solid ground, sees kind of where it was stemming from off in the distance because there's a little bit of a glow. She runs over to the building that glow is emanating from, gets inside. Looks like she's whistling Dixie because there's um, some notes on a clef that are emanating coming from her mouth. And she steps inside, and it's a big old, or what looks to be a big old red ruby. She's thinking, I'm going to be so rich. Now, in the heart of hearts, I'm thinking she's like, I'm going to be so rich, but not only on the frivolous side, like I can take care of my family. Whips out what looks to be a lightsaber. Let's call it a lightsaber. Kind of cuts a circle thing right into it, steps inside of it. The art changes into this uber cool thing. But what do we see inside of this world? Which I have some things I'm going to point out here in a minute, but we see the black egg is inside. She walks up to it, tap, tap, because she's not scared at all. And sure enough, bam, that thing starts kind of like fizzing and things are starting to come off of it. Lightsaber right to the bottom, little bit of an explosion, and a big old naked guy with a half a head comes out looking all hot and whatnot. And Niha may be face to face with a god now.
Yeah. I like this scene quite a bit. Very entertaining. I like the tonal shifts that Hickman uses throughout this whole series. At first threw me off. Again, I'm like, because I didn't understand what he was doing. I'm like, this is nonsense. But once you settle down, at least speaking for myself, once I settled down and go, just stop being uppity, just give the book a chance, it starts working. And sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you just need to put some trust in the author and let them do their thing. Don't start looking too far ahead. I liked how there's a part in where the narrative says, this is going to take a little luck, because they're talking to the Ma is talking to the brain people, 5%, blah, blah, blah. And the last part of that narration of that scene says it's going to take a little luck, and that's how it blends into this new scene. And that's the whole kind of tone, or the the theme of this scene is about luck. And of course, Niha's having terrible luck. She's this person who's getting her purse snatched, and she's just like, ooh, shiny, and then guy smashes her in the face. Car almost hits or does hit her. Then she falls into the water. I love how the white page here, that I used to be a big hater of these, but Hickman kind of won me over, especially since in the image books, they don't charge you any extra. So you're not losing page count of actual comic. They're throwing these in. So these Decorum books are thick because of this. You're still paying $3.99 for over, I think it's 28 pages of story. And the white pages are just thrown in. So I'm like, okay, cool. You're not charging me for them. You can throw as many white pages as you want. But I just love this one. It just says, most people can't breathe underwater. Because that's when she's like, sploosh, glub, glub. And it's like, you turn the page and it's a white page. Most people can't breathe underwater. You're like, what? And then you go and she's swimming around and she sees the big thing. And I was like you. I was like, I had to pause right here. And I was like, really? A lightsaber? But in a good way, not... and then how she approaches the egg, and she just is like, nah, whatever, just tap, tap. No reverence for it. No, like, oh, this is delicate. Maybe I need to. She's just like, knock, knock. And then she pulls out her blade, and she's like, okay, calm down. I'll get you out of there. But then I'm going to shoot you. It's just like, whack. And then, yeah, as you said, comes face to face with the god. And I love this look on this last frame here. And this is totally an anime style thing or a manga style thing to do. The low detail, almost cartoonish face. And I think this is a good sequence to use as an example. I was talking about earlier about the differences in the art quality. And quality may not be the right thing. The art detail. We can
Yeah.
see in the first couple pages of the scene, it's lower detail, a little bit sketchier. There's no real coloring involved, which is going to save the artist some time. Um, so, I mean, some of these scenes, like the underwater, that's a lot of detail in that background. But some of these are just real simple things. And then you get to the egg scene, and it's like, okay, this is time to turn on the full coloring, because this is to enhance, like, this is something that's important. And every time a frame like that is, it seems to, he turns up the detail and then lowers the detail on stuff to just keep the narrative moving. But then you get to the, I guess we'll just call it the God moment, and you can see how it's the full coloring, like almost like painted coloring on pencils here. And I like this transition. It really grew on me. And well, I guess this is still part of the scene.
Yeah. There's one more after that too.
Yeah, and it's just, and I honestly, the more I get used to this, the more it really enhances these shots, because when that detail gets turned up, it kind of reminds me how, here's a great example we can see here where she sees him, and I think this is funny, the top right frame here, she's like looking at him, and then she's like, oh, because you know exactly where she's looking. This next frame's like, my. And look, this is a simple little sketch, because that's not that important for the overall story. You get what's happening, you can move on. And because the artist, in my opinion, I would love to sit down and talk with the artist about this, because the artist is saving time essentially this way, he's able to give us these higher rendered shots. And so it works in many ways beyond, it works in multiple ways for me. That's my thought. I just love this. This book made me smile, on top of being like good hard sci-fi, and it wasn't like dumb jokes. I love this. He's holding the flower and he's like, and of course you're an idiot. Great. What a great wrap up to the scene. What are your thoughts?
So a few things. One of the first things that I wanted to point out is, so he did start using more chapters kind of towards the middle of the book, and now that we're coming to the end, so this is considered chapter 16. It's called Hide and Seek / Seek and Find. So you had the sister Ma, seeking and find, and trying to find the egg, the Messiah, for Chiro Chi and all of his, his team, the God, which had, told him to go and employ the Sisterhood of Assassins to find it. And then on the flip side, hide and seek, because it was being hidden by the by that motherhood that was trying to hide it. So hide and seek. So you do have two sides to the coin being told within this chapter. The other thing that was interesting, aside from what I noted about the Minority Report thing, is that I do see some reoccurring themes from Hickman between the some of the things that went on with X-Men with the Vault people, as well as a book that I continue to tell people like check out because it's very good, and more books that I just found in hardcover for half off. But his Ultimates series that he did, where he had the Maker and all of those people create the world, and inside of the world, time worked different than outside of the world in the normal world. So they had like an accelerated like learning rate, productivity rate, and whatnot. So I see some of those recurring themes happening over here. Another thing that I quite enjoyed, was the same thing that you talked about, the Messiah scene where the Messiah came out of the egg and she was kind of taking a look at him, and it very much kind of reminded me of Adam Warlock before he was named Adam Warlock, and his name was Him. How he was a god, but when he came into the world, he was innocent like a child, and although very powerful, not super knowledgeable. So he did have to learn about the world and learn language and all of those different things, and learn how to control his impulses. Because I think he like came right out and like snatched Sif or something like that, and Thor was all pissed off at him. It could have been a different character. Don't completely quote me on that, but like learn impulse control and all of those things. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. Now, I do want to say this. This is a bit of a critique that I have, but it's not totally negative. it was very convenient the way that Niha came to finding the big old ruby and then the egg being inside, which was essentially that mother, the last mother, dying and turning herself into some sort of a biome again, yeah, close to the whole X-Men thing, and then inside of her now was the egg.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that part, but it was very convenient how it was a trip and a fall and all that other stuff. But here's the thing: I'm okay with conveniences if you're creative with them. And that was the redeeming quality with this, to Ash's point. It was very creative, how it came to be. And it doesn't hurt having Mike Huddleston, like, art his arms off, and showing you this world and all of that stuff. So it was very convincing. It was very creative how it came to be. And that's what redeemed it for me. Because I did kind of have my eyebrow up at first when she was tripping and falling and bumping and all of that other stuff. But as it played out at the end of it, I was like, okay, I do buy it. I'm okay with it. All of it kind of came together at the end. And then I'll use some of that to be a transition on the page. Oh, and as far as the white pages, I do like how the bubbles actually continued on from the page that was on the left. So she had the glurb or whatever, and bubbles were coming from her, and then it did trail over to the other page. So I like how it was used in that sense. And I like Hickman's been doing quote unquote white pages or graphics for a long time. I do think, and I know he's not credited with it, but just following him from Nightly News, I think that he's the one that's doing the white pages. He comes from like a market, like a little bit like Darwin Cook, kind of comes from like a marketing like kind of background. So he understands design, graphic design. That was a heavy thing that he used in Nightly News. So it's nothing new at all.
Yeah.
I think he's doing the white pages. And what's nice about it is Mike Huddleston is dripping so much sauce on these pages. I'm not tripping if he takes a panel off, quote unquote, or some pages off, quote unquote, because we're getting so much inside of what he is giving us. And this is a visual medium. So as long as you're providing visual entertainment, even if it's not, conventional, quote unquote, comic book art, as long as it adds to the story, it does. And then on the next one, after Niha, is taking in how well endowed the Messiah is, we get a storytelling piece where, hey, he might be hungry. He just came out the egg. So she takes him to ramen because there's, bottomless, all you can eat ramen. So I thought that was pretty cool too. Transition into the story.
Very nice. I couldn't have said that better. We got a couple people in the chat making some comments here. FF2 is now hungry for ramen. Thanks you. Let's see. And FF2 also says, Decorum number 7 reminded me of a quote in the Damien, which I'm not familiar with. He says, he got the quote later, says, the bird fights its way out of the egg. The egg is the world. Who would be born must first destroy a world. Herman Hesse. So that's interesting. I always appreciate that sort of stuff brought to my attention. Indie Comic Jones says, you can use the white pages for note-taking. The black pages are more difficult to repurpose. Yeah, you could. I can't imagine marking my books up, but maybe some people for sure. I used to be a big, man, when I'm kind of new to the whole Hickman world, so I kind of discovered him with House of X and Powers of X. And when those books came out, I was so annoyed with the white pages at first because all I could see was being charged for a couple typed words on a page. I'm like, really? I'm paying for art, like comics. Like, I'm not, and you were paying $4.99 for those books. And so it was bothering me. But when this book came out, I was like, oh, it's $3.99. It's like almost double sized. Go for it. That's fine. I don't necessarily mind them. I just didn't like being, I thought they were a gimmick at first. So, this was a little weird though. There were 2 white pages for the ramen thing, but again, moving on. I guess we'll go on to the next scene.
Indeed. To wrap up this scene before we fully go over into the next one, after Niha goes and feeds the Messiah, of course, naturally, the next thing that you do once you feed the body is you shelter the body. So she's looking for some shelter, finds a hotel to hold him up in, and lo and behold, there's someone snooping around the corner, and we know that is the person that was a right-hand man of that mob boss that she had bumped up, that used to feed her work, but only enough work to keep her having to work and not enough for her to get her family out of the cryostasis thing. So we wrap up the scene completely on that. come over to chapter 17. That's not the job. I was trying to sound like Angela Bassett for that Mission Impossible movie, but I don't think I'm not quite the actor nor the actress that she is. So we'll move on. We get a ship blasting through space, going, and then finally getting it to its destination. And it is that being, and I forget the name of that being that worked for that mob boss that Neha used to work for, being that Neha actually bumped him off. He's looking to get revenge, so he goes all the way out to Chiro
Yeah.
Chi. Okay, I
Yeah.
forget how many
I
cheese
know
and how
it's
many.
tough. We can just call him Chirochi for short.
Chirochi, my main man, how you been? Is what this character is not saying, but Chirochi is getting ready to crush him, and he says, "I have a word for you. There's been some betrayal." Um, as more information is gotten out of that being is presented to the god, and the god gets more of the information out of him, talking about how they have found the egg. Did you not employ them to give you the egg? What is it that why haven't they given it to you? You've been lied to, and now what are you going to do about it? And I think we already know what the God's going to do about it. We do transition over to more white pages. This gives us the Church of the Singularity is the name of that group that Chirochi works for, with the God in there, and we get a little bit of the backstory. I do like that Hickman is trying to give the whole parallel between like BC before Christ and AD Anno Domini, with the establishment of like the Maker State and the whatever it was that comes after it. So these data pages were interesting, and they provided information, and I did like the art from them. But I will admit that I'm finding it, and we haven't gotten to the end yet. So again, at the end, it may all make sense, but I'm finding it hard to see how much they additionally add to the story. But I can say this, for Black Monday Murders, I was feeling the same way as I was reading through that, and the white pages that he put in there did completely add to the story and filled in some important information and some gaps. So I'm hoping that this will at the same time also. Actually, and then the next, we're in chapter 18. So Ash, what was your take on the dude going there and giving Chirochi and the gods the drop?
It really helped solidify just how imposing Chirochi is. I mean, I didn't realize he was that ginormous. We get to see that shot here, and he's very menacing in the fact that he doesn't mess around. He doesn't have time to dicker or anything like that. He's just like, yeah, you come here and tell me I don't care. I'm gonna kill you. This is, you're just beneath me. And the fact that this guy had something important to say stayed his hand. And now it's, this is a very tough scene to digest, because I feel like I kind of understand what's going on. And then I get to these white pages, and I sat here and read these for a while, and they didn't really help explain things. I have a feeling like what you said, like after everything's all said and done, I'll be able to go back and these things will help parse out some of the details. But the one thing that I think that I got out of here is that the Maker created God.
Yes.
And that Chirochi is a product of the Maker, or is somehow part of the Maker, or a remnant of the Maker, or something. And
yes,
that
Chirochi is a remnant of the Maker, but yet the god is over Chirochi, but Chirochi is a part of what actually created the god. Yes.
Yeah, like Chirochi is, like, the Maker is many things, and Chirochi is a cog of that. Is how I kind of understand. And that the big thing that they did, according to this, is create God. And then that's where you have the Postmaker. And I believe what I'm trying to understand from the story is that the Church of the Singularity itself, we'll call it, like, doesn't want God to actually be made, or to come into being for whatever reason. And obviously he has, and now the story is going somewhere. But this is a lot of data that doesn't necessarily make sense to me right now because I don't have the context to put it otherwise. I'm glad it's there, but it kind of was confusing, to be honest. It didn't really detract from my enjoyment. It just made me scratch my head.
You pretty much have it. The only key thing that I'll add is they're basically incomplete without the Messiah. So that's why they are so adamant about getting the egg back, or now it's hatched. So getting the Messiah, because if they don't have the Messiah can crush them. But if they have the Messiah and they can essentially program the Messiah and feed the Messiah the data that they preferred to feed him, then they can be fully powerful and kind of complete themselves and go back to dominance. So now they're in a position of um a ad not basically, like, clashing with the motherhood, because they don't have the egg. But if they get the egg back, which has the Messiah in it, then they can program the Messiah with their information and their data, because they're very data based, and then they'll be fully dominant again.
This is making me think of the Matrix again. This very very similar
Yeah.
to how the Matrix ended.
Mhm.
And the whole concept there, and Neo joining the Godhead. Curious. So I like it. I mean, I love the Matrix. I like this. So good. I like it. Let's go on. Chapter 18.
Chapter 18. Chapter 18 is this is the job. So a flip on it. Chi coming in and speaking to Sister Ma, and now questioning Sister Ma with the information that they had gotten from the dude who's ultimately out for Niha's head. And she is taken aback because that information traveled fast. It seems like Niha just hasn't, found the Messiah and hadn't had the time to figure out exactly how she's going to break the news to everyone. And Niha's also in a position where I guess if she wanted to be dishonest and kind of just look out for number one, she could. But supposedly, if we remember back to not even issue 6, I think it was issue 5, that there is a lot of money involved with merely just completing this job. So she would have been well off either way. But we'll discuss that a little bit more towards the end, or maybe when we've wrapped up the book. So now Sister Ma, like kind of startled and taken aback by this information, has to go out of her way to show Chi, like, no, this isn't, like, we're not trying to pull one over on you. I wasn't aware. So what I'll do in that place is I'll actually put an APB, an all points bulletin, out for Niha. And now Niha will essentially be, not public enemy number one, but be the main thing that we're hunting now. So she hops on the horn, gives out the new information. We get a graphic of where all the different various assassins are within the span of a globe, and they're pretty much like, hey, she says, get her, bring her back, bring them both back. And as far as we're concerned, you can bring them both back, dead for all we care. Now, the interesting thing about that, I don't know if Chi heard that communication, because they don't per se want the Messiah dead. But at the same time, I don't know if it hasn't been told to us if any conventional weapons or any weapons that's known to them can even kill the Messiah anyway. But I think, and Sister Ma, obviously she's she's always using the F word. She's always like very extreme with her communication, very loud, very, like head on. I think she was just so fervent to kind of show them that she's the one that mentioned bringing back both dead. And then lastly, we have Madame Morley, who looks like she's on a gig, doing what she does best, spilling blood and putting men in the dirt. And she stabs someone in the neck, slashes off their head, and she is the last face that we see as that last part of the transmission is going out. And that wraps up the last chapter of this issue. Ash,
This was there wasn't a whole lot that stood out to me on these pages. It was pretty standard fare to me. We have, I don't know what I'd call Ma. I don't know if she's really an antagonist, or not, but she's not a protagonist. So I guess she's an antagonist of sorts. And, she's just interested in completing the job. She's got her own methods. She doesn't want to be bothered right now. She's in the middle of her meal. And, it's like a standard trope. And it's like, no, but it's important. Oh, okay, fine. I'll go address. And we see it's Chirochi basically saying, this is a problem. You better fix it. And Ma has to, appreciate that she's in a bad position. So she gets everyone, and it's like, we're ending this now. If you don't want to all be vaporized and you want your reward, then you're going to do this. And we see the last shot with Madame Morley. What's interesting is you kind of know where everyone else stands. We see like the other assassins. We're all sure that they're going to want to kill Niha. No problem. Oh, you want Niha dead? We're going to get a reward? Sure. Consider it done. It'll be our pleasure. And then it cuts. So go find her and the target. And when you deliver them to me, I want you to make sure they are both dead. And we see Madame Morley's face. And it's like, well, is Madame Morley really going to kill Niha? Or is she going to maybe help Niha? And I don't necessarily know, because Hickman is not necessarily a conventional writer, but many tropes would tell us that she'll probably end up helping and going against her own sisterhood, but maybe not. I don't know. And that's one of the beauties about writing like this, because it makes you want to stay tuned. It makes you want to see the next issue. What about you, Skip?
I want to point out something that you said about Madame Morley and what her ultimate allegiances are. It's interesting because there were some things that kind of started to shift with the relationships between the rest of the assassins and Niha. We already know that kind of Madame Morley was a little sweet on her, for lack of a better term, because she brought her into this whole situation and offered her, an opportunity to become a part of the motherhood, which, trial and try and fail and try and fail. Niha ultimately was able to start to get on board. But let's not forget also that Niha started to get some other jobs under her belt, and she started to gain the respect of the rest of those assassins, which at first were threatening her, talking about how they're going to kill her, she's not going to have a chance, all those other funny ways. They actually have some respect for her now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not necessarily just if you look at Sister Ma, even with your kind of stances on is she a protagonist, is she an antagonist, what is she really, we can at least, if we can't pin her position in this book, we can at least look at the character and the behavior that she represents. She doesn't really seem like she's a well-liked person. Even Madame Morley had to have some words with her about how she talks to her and all of that stuff. I'm not so sure that everybody is so keen on Sister Ma to begin with. I think that there can be a big turn for all of them against her, completely cut her out of the deal, and they can divide it all amongst themselves or figure it out, or maybe they can end up all being all out for themselves and cut her out of the deal. I don't think it's so well defined exactly what their allegiances are going to be once things really get going. I think we can probably get a better gauge on Madame Morley just because of what a relationship had been, and I think Hickman is kind of trying to throw us off a little bit, having her shed blood and then give that stern look as the call kind of went out to everyone. We do know that Madame Morley's not necessarily completely happy at her home where she was. She had that scene with her husband where he was talking about he had a weird dream and all that other stuff that occurred before. So I don't think everything that she said she built up and what she took so much pride in and then taking that over to her craft, because her craft had presented her all these opportunities to have a better life, because she, like Niha, kind of started out as a riffraff street rat. I don't buy that. She was that before, and now she's raised herself up and raised the class that she's in. I think kind of close to you think that she could end up either siding with Niha or maybe take a hard turn and stand up for what she's built. But obviously not all is well in paradise for Madame Morley. So she's definitely set up to upset the status quo, so to speak, and what her decisions are and what her actions are maybe in the last issue.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to see. We've got one more issue to go, and we'll see how that plays out. I'm wondering if the title of the book is going to come into play, if the idea of decorum is going to be a important factor in the resolution. Because so far, decorum has been a minor element of the book. Obviously,
Mhm.
it's a part of what drives Madame Morley. It's like how she carries herself and everything like that, but it hasn't really extended beyond that. And I'm wondering maybe if this is where that happens, where maybe her ultimate deciding factor of what side she chooses or what she just decides to do is based on decorum. And maybe Ma steps out of that and loses their way, and Morley's like, this is not how things are done. There's a certain matter of decorum that we have to adhere to, you know, and enters the conflict on those grounds rather than necessarily making moral choices or personal choices based on who's their friends, things like that. I don't know. We'll see. I
I
really don't.
agree. I mean, oh, what were you
I
saying?
was gonna say I really don't know where this is going, and that's kind of a cool thing. Like I can't just be like, oh, I can see where this is gonna end. Like I don't.
Yeah, no, same. I'm not entirely sure either, but being that and Hickman is big at seeding and then letting the plants grow, and and then reaping a harvest later on and things. The decorum did come up, and Madame Morley kind of grilled Neha on that, earlier on. I can see that maybe the furthest people apart at this point is probably core of the core characters is Neha and Chirochi and the gods, and Sister Ma has been the intermediary, I guess, if you want to call her that. So if she gets taken out of that position, whether killed or demoted or put to the side or whatever, then Neha is going to have to come face. She's already face to face with Messiah. She's going to have to come face to face with God. She is the one that got that decorum grilling. Part of decorum is grace and graciousness.
Mm-hmm.
If she at that point comes to that part, those situations where all of us show who what our true character is and opportunities for us to grow. If she shows decorum, if she shows grace in that time, and that God sees that in her, that could be the moment where decorum plays the bigger role. Because I can't think of a bigger scenario coming to the end of the book where decorum might come up again, unless it happens like after the apex of the story, and that could be a thing too. I mean, it could be both. It could be in that moment, and then after the fact, her and Madame Morley are sipping tea and talking about hey, Ash drinks with his pinky out, maybe we should too, because Hickman watches our streams. But that's how I can see it potentially happening. And that's me like putting all of my Hickman stuff together and trying to take my best guess. But like Ash said, it's a good thing that we don't know. If we did know, we wouldn't be as invested, or at least as interested. We may still be invested, but not as interested in seeing how this is all going to wrap up. But being that we don't know, and and being that things are a little loose and not super super tight, Hickman is good at putting the pieces in their place. He doesn't always put them face to face. He doesn't always put them side by side, but he puts them in a well enough place to where things can fail, things can succeed, pieces can jump some spaces that we forgot in the game, that you can move that certain piece there if this piece is in that certain situation. He very much plays chess. So we're in a really 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 good spot to see a master start making some moves that we don't see the common chess player start to make and wrap up the story in exciting fashion.
Nice. All right. Well, that wraps up our coverage of Decorum for tonight. Hopefully, you guys are reading this and you're not just letting us spoil it for you. But if we are spoiling it for you, I guess maybe that'll get anytime you can jump on. He's got one more issue to go. I really hope that this comes produced in a nice hardcover edition down the road, like Cruel Summer. Skip, why is Cruel Summer important?
Cruel Summer is important because it is probably the biggest hit single from Bananarama. So if you guys want to hear one of the best songs of the 80s, Cruel Summer, Bananarama, thank me and Ash later.
And also, Criminal Cast is returning Wednesday. to cover Cruel
Oh,
Summer.
oh, that's right, Ash. We got a criminal cast coming up. How could I have forgotten?
It's easy to forget when you're getting lost in indie comics and Decorum and East of West. So I don't blame you. But Cruel Summer is a nice thick hardcover. It's about 8 comics worth of. So that's what made me think this is 8 comics. I could imagine this having that production quality of that hardcover, with all maybe some extra materials thrown in. This will be a good thing to own. So, Hickman, you can send me my finder's fee checks anytime. FF2 wants to know, what issue of you guys are you guys on, East of West?
We are on. Well, Ash, you were gonna give an answer.
I was gonna say we're about to get into East of West right now. We're on volume 8 of the trades. We're doing trades, trade by trade. There are 10 total trades, and we're on volume 8, which starts with issue 35. Should we get into said trades?
Hold on, I gotta put on my back brace because you're talking about hardcovers and stuff like that. I peeked over at my Cruel Summer hardcover. I think Bananarama did it better, but Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are fine. If you want to talk about them and do a whole podcast about them, that's cool. I got this big old hardcover from volume 3, and I gotta put it down on my desk. Ash, is your back hurting from
Oh well, I make sure that I lift with my legs and put a back brace on before I maneuver my East of West hardcover, because I'm getting old and I don't want to pull out my back.
You are a wise man. So yes, FF2, you got your answer. We're in volume 8. So that starts on issue 35. Issue 35, To Teach a Man to Fish. Now, Ash, before I go through and I uphold my end of this deal, is there anything, any first words that you want to say before I get this thing rocking?
My first words are that I continue to love this series. It is catapulted, skyrocketed, warped its way into the stratosphere for me as far as like top series that I've ever read. I continue to be shocked at how much I love this series. I've said this before, but maybe this is everyone's first episode, so I don't know, but when I started this series, I knew it was going to be solid, just based on the number of people recommended it, and I can kind of put 2 and 2 together. It's like, if all these different various people whose opinions I trust all are saying the same thing, the likelihood that it's not going to be good is just astronomically low. But will it necessarily be my cup of tea? Well, I think it's as great as they do. I don't always do that. That's a normal thing. But I do like what I had read from Hickman so far, other than the books that won't be named. And so, I was like, let's give this a shot. This is good. And the first volume was good. I enjoyed it. And then the second got better. And then the third. And then we got into the year 2. And I love how they break this up into multiple years. And it just got going. And when we got really into the act, like each year seems to be kind of like an act. And once all the setup was done, once we got used to all these characters and so forth, and then Hickman started putting the pieces in motion, that just hooked me like, I don't know, I'm just going to try to make a fishing reference there, but I'm not a fisherman, so I couldn't do it aptly, but I am firmly on the hook. I'm reading these. It is a chore to stop reading, because I've committed myself to only reading 1 volume every 2 weeks that we do the show, because I could just binge it and then we could just cover them or whatever. But part of this part of this exercise isn't to just do the show on it, but it's also to allow people like myself to read this and have it be over a period of time. We've talked about binge watching being kind of having its own cons. Like you can binge watch something like on the Netflix model, and the new show comes out and you boom, You barf it all out. You watch every episode over a weekend, and it's done. And no matter how good the show is, it's still over quickly. And then it's normal human nature for us to move on to something else. And I don't think it allows a work to have the same level of impact as if you spread that enjoyment out. I don't think if George Lucas's original Star Wars trilogy had come out over 1 year, like one summer, every month, a new movie for 3 movies, and then be done, I think people would have loved it, and people would probably talked about it this day, but it would not have been the same as coming out over a period of 6 years. That it's just, and then afterwards, just staying in the, the fandom's mind, like being able to enjoy these books like this over a period of time, like monthly comics. We can do this show every month or every 2 weeks. We're coming back and we're just talking about it, and we're keeping it's in the zeitgeist. This is sort of replicating that. And so it's tough is what I'm trying to say, but it's worth it. It's delayed gratification. And this is so good. As much as I like Decorum, I really do. This so far. I mean, I haven't come to the end of either one, but this is just because it's bigger. There's just so much more to it, and it's epic. I don't want to say it's everything I love about a comic, but it's got the originality to the book. I've never read anything like this, which has its own merits, and I love. We'll get into some of those details as we get in the book. I'll explain more. I'm gonna speak too much right now, so.
No problemo. So right into the fire, issue 35, Teach a Man to Fish. It's funny that Ash was making fishing references, and my last name is Fisher, but we shall proceed. The 3 horsemen are closing in on Babylon. One wants to serve Babylon, but the others are not quite in agreement on that part. As they're moving through, there is some gunfire that they come under, and sure enough, I believe it's Conquest.
Yes, Conquest with the sword.
It is Conquest with the big old sword. Goes ahead, shows his might, jumps, does a move, slams that thing into the earth. The gunman is revealed, tries to run, and he gets the yank. I always want to point out, anytime you're reading the Hickman book, no matter where it is, Indy or the Big Two, well, I mean, I guess he's only worked for Marvel, he'll always do the I as often as he can. It's always the A-I-E-E-E-E. Always look for it. Hickman, without fail, he will at least do it like 3 times throughout a run. So throws the whip around the gunman's neck, pulls him back down to the ground. And this part is important because we finally get one of the other taglines from the book. There's no mercy, there's no forgiveness. We would tell you to pray, but it wouldn't do you any good. You have earned what is coming to you. And they put an end to that guy. And then before we go over to the other page, we get a white page, one of my favorites. Here's what I know to be true. Before it all comes crashing down, the people will wake up. It will just be too late to do anything about it.
Damn, this hit me like a sledgehammer. But we'll keep going. You got to finish the book.
Yep, I'll wrap up the rest of this. Then we get Babylon and Death. They've been able to spend some father-son time together, which is awesome. The more and more Balloon is revealing, is kind of showing his hand that he's kind of controlling what Babylon sees, and Death, being his father, is not too keen on some other thing influencing his son more than he is. They go out and they find a lake. Death teaches Babylon how to skip stones. They have a little conversation about fishing, and actually they end up fishing, so he teaches him how to fish. Death gets upstaged by Balloon because Balloon's like, hey, we need to eat. You guys have only caught 1 fish, and there's a bunch of other fish over here. Babylon doesn't mind going over and taking that advice from Balloon, so he goes over to the location where there's more fish. Balloon just ends up zapping all the fish and killing them all. So Babylon yells, hey, Dad, come over here, which kind of startles Death because he told him, hey, if you need anything, call me. And then he yelled, like, I guess kind of screaming bloody murder. And he's like, what'd you call me like that for? And he's like, because I need you to help me carry all these fish. They end up going to a little monument, a place that has kind of been forgotten in time. And as they go through there, Death notices even more that what he sees, Babylon is seeing something different. Babylon pulls up a skull and thinks that it's a teddy bear. Death sees it as a skull, and Babylon is insistent on keeping it like it's a pet. And Death only lets him keep it because Balloon says, "Will it make you happy?" And Babylon's like, "Yeah, it'll make me happy." So they say, "Yeah," but they come to a moment where Babylon is sleeping, hugged up with his new little skull that he thinks it's a teddy. Death asks Balloon, like, "Hey, is he asleep? Is he fully asleep?" And Balloon lets him know that he is, and Death pretty much lets him know, like, "Look, I know something's going on, and I know you're not telling me everything, and you're telling me that y'all are learning stuff at the same time. But if you're lying to me, you're gonna be answering for it." And he pulls the Balloon down face to face and gives him that bit of information. So after they have that stern talk in the night, another week passes, and so it's 3 weeks total so far that at the very least that they've been able to spend some father son time together. And that necklace that Death had given Zhao Lin, his wife, he's starting to get some readings from it, some communication that she is in peril. She's getting ready to go to war, and it doesn't look like she has the upper hand. And Babylon's like, "Dad, should we go help her?" And Death pretty much tells him, "Don't worry, son. There's nothing that's going to keep me from that. It's time for you to see what your old man is made of." And that is the end of that one. Kicking it over to you, Ash.
So, being frank, this is one of my least favorite issues of the series in recent times. But that's not to say that this was a bad issue. It's just that they're so great so much, like that I just, when you get the lull, you're like, oh. But there were some great moments, and I did actually. It's like a good album. You're a musician, you probably get this. A good album isn't always about just banging hits nonstop. Sometimes it's having those interludes, those slower moments, the breaks and the beats and the rhythm, so that the listener can have an emotional rest. It's oftentimes that's why greatest hits albums aren't nearly as good sometimes as just a great album. But either you get that or you don't, I guess. This book kind of reminds me of that. It's just like, this is meant to be kind of a little bit of an interlude, and we get the nice father-son bonding moments of Death. I really enjoyed the fishing stuff. It's so absurd, but yet it's played straight. Like it's Death and the beast fishing, like, and skipping rocks, and it's just like, when you stop and think about it, you're like, this is so surreal and weird, but yet it's played straight. And if you've read the series thus far, contextually, it fully makes sense. Like, you're not like, oh, this is dumb. Like, you're sold on it. I love how Balloon does kind of upstage Death here. And I also like the themes that it kind of carries off, that Balloon is a deceiver, and that Babylon is kind of who he is because he's under the influence. Now, I'm not sure whether to think that what Balloon may reference, does that mean Balloon references Satan or what? I don't know. But I find it very interesting that Babylon doesn't see the world for what it is. And it makes me think that that's going to be a very important piece to the story. And it's also interesting to see how Death is dealing with this. So far, he's being pretty understanding and letting things happen. He lets his kid have the skull. It's a teddy bear. And I like it. I like that he doesn't just go off half-cocked. It makes me feel that Death is a powerful entity and not just some, I don't know, just angry rage monster or something. I don't know. He's got a wisdom. This is a being that's been around for who knows how long, and it plays off well for me. I love the references of his wife, and he's like, he's talking about, tells his kid about his mom, and he's like, my mom? And then Balloon just rattles off who she is. And then he pauses and, we should help her, Dad. Don't worry, son. Nothing in this world, and nothing from any other, could stop me from doing that. It's time to see what your old man is made of. And it's just like, yeah, like you're just like, come on, like you're rooting for death. And then I stop and pause and go, wait, am I supposed to be rooting for death? I don't know. But that's just my human reaction. But the part that I said, like, that hit me like a stone was that white page, because one of the things of many things that I'm enjoying about this series is that it has something to say. I believe that art has something to say. What it has to say can be something very simple. The message doesn't always have to be some deep, resonating philosophy on life. It can just be something very simple. But I believe all art has something to say. And I think that's what makes this series a work of art, is because I really feel like it has something to say, and not just something, many things. And this part I just love. This matches sort of my philosophy, or at least outlook on life about, before it all comes crashing down, the people will wake up. It'll just be too late. And I just see that in life echoing over and over, like humanity's in this loop. You can go back to biblical times and like the story of Noah, right? That whether you believe in God and whether the Bible's true or not, regardless, the story of Noah is a story. And in that story, God comes to Noah and says, look, there's going to be a big flood. You should build this boat and get your family to go on and you'll be safe. And then Noah goes and tells everyone, like, hey, look, this is going to happen. Build this boat. Let's go. Let's all be safe. And they're just like, shut up, Noah. I'm not going to listen to you. And then the rains start coming. And then it's like, oh, hey, Noah, maybe we should, it's too late. You should have been building that boat a year ago. It's too late. And that is a story that this kind of reminded me. And that's that story that I can see, you see echo in history time and time again in humanity, how people will wake up and they'll do something as a society and then like wake up from it and go, oh my God, what the hell are we doing? We can't do that again. And then 100 years will go by and then we're doing it all over. And eventually the things that are going on today we'll wake up from, but will it be too late? So that's where it kind of hit me. And again, everyone's going to have their own subjective reactions, but that's what went on through my mind.
He doesn't see the world as it is. He sees it as what it could be.
Yeah.
Something's not right there.
Nope. Balloon is nefarious.
Indeed. Issue 36. This is real revolution. We come to Wolf now being the chief of chiefs within the Endless Nation, looking out upon the Union as it is in peril. Obviously, there had been a revolution going on inside, and it is being taken over. He has his council around him, his bot giving him information on kind of what's going on out there, and basically just kind of giving him a war report, so to speak. And he Wolf is just kind of giving some commentary on it. Bodaway starts to talk and basically says that Wolf wants to make a move on the place, and Bodaway says that we can't because because this place is bones and bonded. And the person asks, what one of the people on the council asks, what is that? And then Wolf tells him, why don't you explain Bodaway? And essentially, someone else who was a part of the Endless Nation had gone there, kind of had done some of the, like, let's say sorcery or whatever, or spell or whatever from their religion and their customs. But not only that, had actually taken actual bones from from the Endless Nation there, so that way, since there's bones there, it's also like it's like proxy sacred ground, because they don't the Endless Nation wouldn't want to send big bombs over there or do anything to harm the bones of their own people. And Wolf reveals that he knows what bones and bonded was, and he was just saying, like, you know, there's parts of our customs that I uphold and that I want to respect, but there's also parts of them that don't do us any good. And as he's continuing to give commentary on that, we see that he had a plan all along. He had sent some ships out. They had crashed into the White Tower of the Union, and that's where the essentially the Indian, burial ground, or the Native American, or the native, let's say. Well, I guess that is America. Yeah, it's America. So Native American burial ground was right underneath the Union, and they were hoping that that would be some protection should the Endless Nation ever want to come up against them. But he sent a drone in, and the drone was essentially recalling and exhuming the bones out from underneath the foundation of the Union, and then bringing them back out of the Union back to the ship. So he basically brought the bones back to remove that place and change it from being bones and bonded, and now they're able to go ahead and go into that place without any harm coming upon them from the spells, and do whatever they need to without worrying about destroying the bones of the people there. We do get a white page. Your end will be the same as theirs. There's nothing special about you. Within there, uh, we see that now they have already entered. We see Endless Nation, different crafts in there and whatnot. We see different Endless Nation people and soldiers kind of getting the people in line and rounding them up. And then Death, and keep in mind, he did overcome Ezra Orion with his large wolf and ended up swallowing Ezra. So now he is not only chief of chiefs for the Endless Nation, but also he is the prophet of the message now, because he has swallowed Ezra. So Ezra is inside of him, and Ezra had eaten the actual message to become the message. So now Wolf is the prophet. So he's walking amongst on Ezra's old beast. He walks up the steps and he gives a very cool and triumphant speech, essentially declaring peace. He says, no matter which side that you were on, whether you're on the side of the Union, whether you're on the side of the rebellion, now no side matters but mine, and I have called for peace. One of the people that was a part of the renegade group, basically runs out, and she's grieved because her friends had lost their lives. So much had been sacrificed only to not get the victory that they thought they would, but for someone else to come and take dominion over their land. And he pretty much, lets her know, and even Bodaway has a word like, hey, you can get with the program or you cannot get with the program, but the program is not changing. Ultimately, they get up into the top of the Union, the White Tower. Another white page. I'll read this one. We have taken all that you have. We will erase all that you were. And that's interesting because Wolf and Bodaway are having a conversation, and he was basically letting them know, like, hey, I've been chief of chiefs. Back when my uncle was chief of chiefs, you and him didn't always see eye to eye, and he made mistakes. And Bodaway said, yeah, he absolutely did make mistakes. He thought that he essentially, like, he was untouchable, and he didn't revere or properly have the perspective on the position that he actually had. But Bodaway was like, but you're making no mistake, so I don't see why you need a council. And ultimately, Wolf reveals to him, like, hey, we did the job that we needed to do. This place is no more bones and bonded. We've now taken over the Union, and now I'm going to hand over the position of Chief of Chiefs to you. You will lead our people. I am still the prophet, so I need to go wrap up that part of being the prophet of the message. And then he leaves. We end that scene, and then we come back up on the Atlas. The Atlas is the place where that tracker used to be, where people, Death has already went, and he got a hold of where his son may be, where Babylon may be. The three horsemen that are left, that are grouped together, they've been there before, gathering information on where Death may be and where other people may be. And this time they're looking for Babylon because, like they said, they want to hunt him down. And when they go and they look, they get that information, and they set out to try to intercept them, or at least they have the information now. And now we come back to a scene where it's Death in Babylon. Babylon is asking, how long until you could give us the information on how far out, the House of Mal troops are. And Balloon is being a little funny, talking about he could reveal himself and make himself known if he reaches out past the networks that are local. And so it's funny, after they're over with that whole conversation, Babylon says, "Hey, can I ask you something, Dad?" And he's like, "One question, then bed." And Babylon says, "Okay, what's she like?" And then that's when he talks about um Zhao Lin. He gives him some information about his mother and everything. And that's when he was like, "Okay, cool, I can't wait to meet her." And then we come back to Crow and Wolf. Wolf is standing out amongst um, basically the craft that they're on, saying that he's going to go to Armistice because that's where the message belongs, and the message is inside of him. And now that he's done being Chief of Chiefs, um, so begins the last days of the Prophet. And we see that they have arrived in Armistice, and now where that the sign of Armistice, basically the triangle that has four triangles to make it up, that's been removed, and now the Endless Nation is stacking their ships like totems, because they are natives on top of it, and they are at that land. And Ash, I kick it over to you.
Now this book, I really like this one. Again, this so much to say. I feel like I can't even really adequately express it. It's so much going on through my mind as I'm reading this book. First of all, like, just start off on this first page, though, this visual. Nick Dragotta is a really imaginary artist. These pictures, these shots like this, they just send my imagination reeling. He's not the most detailed illustrator that I've ever known, but this is just cool. Like, I just want to see this made into a movie. I think he could, if he didn't have a career in comics, he could be a career as a conceptual artist. Because this is just cool. Like, I just want to see this. It just enhances the world so much. I like the whole the conversation that went with Wolf, and I love how the story about we can't go into the Union because of the bones, and it kind of brings back the idea of, like, the Indian burial ground, sacred ground. They're forbidden to go on the sacred ground, but Wolf thought of that already. But in this, there was something you didn't cover, which was, it was more than just to protect the Union. They actually did it because there's this concept that when conquering societies have no outside enemies, they turn within. And this, again, made me think about humanity in the real world, and especially the current times. Now, this isn't Hickman necessarily being political and spitting in your face like real world events, but this is real world like humanity. This is something that is true. We can see it time and time again. And this is something that's happening, the United States is having to deal with, something that old school Britain had to deal with when it was, the kingdom, and they were unchallenged, and they had their various colonies, of which America was one of them, that they had no more enemies, and they turn within. We're doing that today. The United States doesn't have any exterior rivals. The difference of the United States now versus what it was during the Cold War is vastly different. And like I said, what I appreciate is that Hickman's not trying to preach to you any sort of real world politics, but just talk about philosophical ideas and let you walk away however you want to take it. This is all a fantasy world. This is what's happening in this world. If you want to draw real world comparisons, you can. And if you don't, you don't. It's not. But it is making a commentary on ideas, and I really respected that. And Wolf is talking about a lot of that here, and I appreciate when art speaks on those levels to me. I do love how he's riding in as the conqueror, and he's riding I keep wanting to call that thing the Beast, but it's not really. But I love that he comes in and he's like, I'm the peacemaker, essentially. And we see that Rebel. Remember the Rebel girl from several issues back who was responsible for toppling the president, and because she was the one that was left alive. And so she has this really cool story within East of West, and she triumphs. She gets the president killed. There's this whole great story arc, and you're cheering for her. At least I was. And Wolf comes in and he's like, look, I'm bringing peace, and whatever the old ways are, whatever you guys were fighting before, leave it alone. There's only my way. You guys, it's done. You're now doing my thing. And this girl's just like, bullshit. We fought for this. We fought against corruption. We fought to get our freedom, blah, blah. We were treated terrible. And all of this is true. All of this is true. And he's like, it doesn't matter, because at some point, he doesn't say it in verbatim, but essentially what I took out of it was, he says, it's now peace. Peace has to come. There's now mercy. And we see Bodaway makes a statement about, like, you want to talk about not letting things go? He's like, how about we basically put, smallpox blankets on you and have you march north? And he doesn't say it like that, but referencing how the Indians were treated hundreds of years prior. And it's like, yeah, that's true. And it's again, this is where the book is speaking to me in themes and ideas of, like, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. This idea of you constantly have to be like, I'm wronged, I have to, like, get justice, I have to get vengeance. Well, then the person you get it against, they're going to be wronged and they're going to have to seek it. And when does it stop? And it never stops. Unless you have someone like this, like when Wolf comes in and goes, it's done. I am peace. All sides. Peace for everyone. Even the people that caused the problems, right? And the victims, they don't want that. They're like, no, we didn't get our justice then. And it's like, well, that's the only way you're going to get it. And she can't handle it. She's like, no, I will refuse to live on my knees. And they make a statement. It's like, well, that's good for you. You'll die as you lived. And then there's this shot here, which I didn't catch the first time I read through. I was looking beyond the shadow here, and I was looking onto the monster thing and seeing them kind of walk into the building, but that person hanging is the girl. That's the rebel leader. And I'm just like, damn. Because I was rooting for her. I liked her. I empathized with her. She was not necessarily wrong. But I also, again, understand that concept of the eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. And there's so many complex ideas at work here. And Hickman sort of just addresses them so seemingly effortlessly. They're just part of his book. Again, it never comes off like he's preaching you anything. He's just throwing that in the story, and you see it. And man, it really just speaks to me. This conversation with Bodaway was pretty interesting. You pretty much covered that. And what else? See the campfire. Yeah, those are the parts that really hit me the most. So I think you covered everything else that I wanted to talk about this book.
Very well. Moving on to number 37. The Hunt is On. This one, I had you in mind, Ash, when I was
you did.
reading this one.
Yeah, you did. Oh my goodness.
and honestly, even just for the way that it begins, but then, like, as I continue to go through, I was like, this is probably Ash's favorite one out of the four that we're reading for this one. So I'll go through it so that way you can talk about it and I can stop talking. We start off with a fly, and as we zoom out, we see where the fly is. And it is a bit of a recap of where we left off with Ranger Thomas last time. Bell Solomon above him. The dog is down. Ranger Thomas telling Archibald Chamberlain, telling him, do your worst, and Archibald obliges. And instead of putting another slug inside of Ranger Thomas, because he put one in his leg and I think two more in his torso, he put a bullet in Ranger Thomas's dog, and the dog is out. And Chamberlain and the rest of his posse make their getaway. So we pick up right from there. Ranger Thomas is, hacking, huffing, goes over to his dog, hits a side or hits a button. It reveals a little like a little locker, almost kind of like a little chamber where where he pulls out a needle and injects himself with it. There's a med kit, so he bandages himself up so he doesn't bleed out as best as possible. He's jumping on his craft, and he looks back, and we find out that he did bury his dog named Red. It looks back, and it seems like if his visor wasn't there, there'd likely be a tear
Yep.
right there where his visor would be, as he has to leave his fallen best friend behind, because if he stays with him, he will suffer the same fate, which will be losing his life. We get a white page. I asked for mercy, I settled for justice. Now all that remains is revenge. Let's see. And if I am not vengeance, then I am nothing. We see that the ranger essentially kind of drives himself right in the direction of a hospital and falls off of his craft right in front of that place. People see that he's incoming, so they make accommodations to take a gurney out, throw him on there, start to try to figure out, tell it, that he need to know his blood type and all of that stuff for the transfusion. And right before he goes under for surgery, like, my God, what the hell happened to this guy? And all he can do is grimace and say, "Sons of bitches killed my dog." And then he just he goes on like, that's a pretty badass. Like, it's a Ranger Thomas is such a badass dude. Like, he's about to die, and even still, all he gives a damn about is his best friend that went down. But he wakes up a week later after surgery, is on alert, just throws his gear on immediately. The nurses there are trying to be like, you shouldn't be out of bed, like you need to go lay down, like you need to chill. And like, what do you need? And he's like, an ambulance. And he basically goes, kind of pushes them out of the way, commandeers an ambulance, and directly sets out for some coordinates that are unknown. We come back to the Atlas where we left off with the three horsemen, and they are coming out of it with the information of, or the last known information of where Babylon and Balloon are, so they can try to go and get Babylon back, so they can program the beast to be the beast to help bring about the end of times. And they look up above them, and it is actually the ambulance landing, and it is Ranger Thomas. They're just talking about how, like, they killed, or well, some of the people inside were already dead, but one of them made a knife out of the bones of one of the dead people in there. So they're feeling all murderousy and whatnot. But as Ranger Thomas comes out, he's like, he basically asks them, some information, and they're like, "Do we look like effing tour guides?" And he's like, "Yeah, you do. Don't be out here when I when I come back out." He has no idea that he's talking to three out of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and doesn't give a good goddamn. And they're discussing, like, should we stick him? And I forgot who it is. It's the Redmond, but they're like, "God, no, take a look at that man. He has a murderous spirit ready to unleash it on the world. If anything, we should wish him luck." Okay, good luck, on your murders. So he goes through the door, gains access to the global database of people, doing their dealings. Takes a swig of something, basically checks the score on the chosen, finds out which one of them are dead, which are still alive, puts Chamberlain and Solomon to the side, says he's going to deal with them last because that's looking like dinner and dessert. And since Madame LeVay is already gone, and we know that the premier, the Mao of the House of Mao, is already dead. Next on the list is the Prince of the Kingdom of New Orleans. So he comes to find out, well, he already knows where the kingdom is. Everybody does, but he finds out some of the last transactions that were done, and that gold that he had gotten from the kingdom, and then ended up robbing. So he couldn't give it to Madame LeVay, and essentially gave himself a stash of gold. He finds out about that, and then he also looks at some weapons costs, and so he sets out to go after him. And he also found out about an unauthorized stop that was supposedly deleted. So he goes after that information, and lo and behold, it is the Widowmaker who she and Doma Lux kind of made their own getaway as the Union was falling. The White Tower was being taken over by the renegades, and the Widowmaker draws the weapon, tells him that that he knows that he's there. He basically says, "Hey, I'm not hunting you. I'm hunting the Chosen." Doma comes out and is like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. Oh yeah, go ahead and come in." So they sit down, have a conversation. They put all their cards on the table. Ranger Thomas asks Doma, "Why did Doma defect?" Doma gives him the spiel. He buys it, and he's basically saying like, "Hey, I'm gonna go and take the rest of them out. I'm starting with the Prince." And they're like, "What, are you just gonna walk up in there with your bare fists and try to punch him to death?" And he's like, "Yeah, you got a better idea?" And they're like, "Yeah, we do." And they open up the stashes and show that since Doma knew where the gold was, they went and plumaged the stash of gold. So now they've got some of the gold. They give some of it to Ranger Thomas. He goes to the guns and the ammo shop that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Goes inside, and the clerk or the owner asks him, "What does he need?" He says, "Can I help you, son?" Plops down the gold on the gold bars on the table. Says, "I'll take one of everything." Pulls the hat off of the gun store owner. He says, "And the hat." That was personally my favorite part, because now Ranger Thomas got his black hat back.
Yeah.
You know he's about to whoop some ass. So later he goes. He is kind of in the backwoods of the kingdom. He is loaded up to the teeth, baby, putting shells and magazines. And I'm not talking about the ones that we flip through inside of every gun that he has. Takes one more look at the Sweet Prince. And I love how he says, "Well, this is it. Time to say goodnight, Sweet Prince. I'm going to close those eyes one last time." And this Frank Castle has nothing on Ranger Thomas right now. This dude has a vest of grenades, lasers, everything. And he's just walking out of the woods into the kingdom to handle business. Ash, it's on you.
And let's not forget, he's got motivation because someone killed his dog. And you know what happens when you kill a badass's dog.
What happens, Ash?
Oh, well, just watch John Wick. You find out.
True.
This, I'm partial to dogs, obviously. And I didn't know his name was Ranger Thomas. I was just always calling him the lawman or the ranger. So that's good. I love this scene that opens up. I love how the camera starts like zoomed in, so you can't really tell. You're like, a fly? What the heck's that fly on? Some sort of liquid. And we get the flashback. Happy to oblige. So we remember a flashback scene, and then the camera's like pulling out slowly. And you're like, oh, okay, that's the ranger. Okay, oh, that's his dog. And you see the full shot of the dog, what happened. And, yeah, that stung. And, you covered what happens. He rests, and then seeing how he drove away and he had time to bury his dog. Yeah, this is Hickman going, I'm not going to give you social commentary. I'm just going to give you pure emotional humanity, and you're going to relate to it. And I love how he can change gears like that. I love how he's not a one-trick pony. And there's so much. This is one thing I wanted to talk about, too, about this series that I'm really enjoying, is that it's one of these rare books that is the sum of the parts are greater than the parts themselves. Each of these books, there's only been a few issues that I've given 5 stars, but so far I would give the whole series a 5 stars, right? Like, some of these issues as an individual, if I just look at them in a vacuum, I go, it's okay. But when you put them together, it all works so well. And this series is absolutely needs to be enjoyed as a whole, for that reason. I really enjoyed these shots here of him coming to the hospital. I don't know why. Dragota's art was on point for me. And the coloring, fantastic. This desert coloring, the choice of the blue streak, the colors. This is my favorite page, just on a visual standpoint. And this again is where I must commend Nick Dragota's art as not just as an illustrator, but as a conceptual artist. Like, if I had $1 billion, if I had a ton of money to just blow, I would adapt this into a series. And I don't think I would change very much. I would want to see these designs kept intact, because it's all that good. I love also how, just speaking of designs, I love how the Ranger's breathing mask is designed like lamb chop mustache and
Yeah.
beard. Like it just so works. Um, the scene at the hospital was fun. It really just kind of set up how much of a badass he is. This vehicle here, by the way, I want a model of this vehicle. This vehicle's so I want this on my desk. It's so cool looking. Um, this was a very straightforward story about a man. This is like a John Wick type story. I mean, I know I use that reference, but it really that's all John Wick is. It's just a simple story of vengeance, and this book was very much the same way. And it puts together a lot of pieces that have been used in the previous books, about the gold heist and everything like that, about these two lovers getting away. And it uses that to help further the Rangers' mission. And I love how this world feels like a world. Like these things all are related. All these paths intertwine, and it makes the world of East of West feel more vibrant and alive. Yeah, it's just so funny that the ammo shop, the guy's like sees the bag of gold, is I want everything. That was just cool. This is a very straightforward book. There wasn't anything that was super meaningful, but the one thing that did stand out to me is here at the end, and it's a writing technique that I love that certain authors do, is they spend time building up the antagonists so that when the protagonist meets the antagonist, it's a really big deal. And this is something that is seemingly so overlooked in fiction these days. So many, I mean, I would say 9 out of 10 authors overlook this value. Hickman almost writes this whole series, East of West. He almost writes this as a fight promoter. He understands exactly like what makes like pro wrestling work. And I don't mean to compare this to pro wrestling, because I do compare a lot of comics to pro wrestling. I don't mean to compare it like he's writing a pro wrestling script, but he's using the same type of things where, and it's not just pro wrestling, boxing, MMA, things like that. Fights always have a much bigger magnitude when you start caring about the characters and you start if you start following their fights. If you see two like undefeated boxers, right, and you follow their careers, and then when they finally come to fight, it's a huge deal because you're like, oh my God, and he does the similar thing here. We already know he spent so many issues showing us that John Freeman is a badass. Like, he is not a guy to be trifled with. We also know that the Rangers, no slouch. And now these two are going to come to meet. And because of all that history, what's coming up next, you're just salivating for. You're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? These two mammoths are going to collide. And so I just wanted to say that. And Hickman has done that multiple times, not just here, throughout the series, where he sets up, and every time it pays off. So bravo, Hickman. This was one of my favorite issues of so far. So let's get to the final issue.
Final issue, issue 38, The Once and Future King. Ranger Thomas, we pick up where he left off. He's marching his way right into the kingdom, and he is found out by some of the kingdom guards, but more specifically, some of the princes, some of the king's sons. And he starts giving, a little speech about how they're trying to be all hard and how he's the real hard one. And they talk back like, all right, old man, well, what is it that you do want? And then he talks about how he's the law and he's going to come take vengeance and he wants to kill the prince. And they're like, well, why didn't you just lead with that one next time? Come on. Because they want the Prince John Freeman to to be dead too, because all the brothers hate each other, but they hate their oldest brother the most. White page, he stole what was yours and gave it to your enemy. Now he's inside of the royal palace and he is escorted to the king. The king sees who he is, and the king is aware of the chosen because he knows what his sons are into, especially the one that might actually be the one to take over the throne. So he tells everybody to get out and has a conversation with Ranger Thomas, and Ranger Thomas puts the cards on the table, and the king pretty much lets him know, like, look, that's all good and well and fine, and but I'm not gonna let you have your way in my kingdom. In my kingdom, I'm the law, and I say what goes. And I'm gonna do you a solid. I'm gonna let you leave with your life, but you won't be leaving with your guns. And Ranger Thomas says, that's fine, whatever. I've got many more guns, many more, as many as you've got sons. And that part is that. Another white page. How can you call this man your son? And then we go to the next day. The next day, we are with Prince John Freeman. He is with his girlfriend, who is the vizier to the king. The king is called to dinner. He's trying to find out from the vizier why the king's called to dinner, and she is very loyal to the throne. So as much as he tried, and as much as she does truly love him, she does not divulge that information, acts like she doesn't know. But let's be honest, she knows. Loyal to the throne. And she even reminds him, I'm loyal to the throne that you will be sitting on one day. So you should see it as an asset that I will not give you this information. Look at it as a way that you can trust me. So they go to dinner at the royal palace. And the king always wants to know how many sons he has. Like he just can't look about them and count. I know his eyes are getting old and whatever, but at the same time, when you're a king and you got all these people around you, it's like you got to put them to work, right? So you got to ask them questions that you can answer for themselves just so you give them a purpose. So, of course, she tells him, I do like how they use it as a storytelling device because there was a fever that went around, some could say a pandemic, and one of the sons did not make it through that. So now he has 14. But the king asks how many are worthy of the throne. And she says pretty much two. If you ask some people, possibly three. But don't count me amongst those people that would say three. There's pretty much only two. And he says, look at them. And, he tries to cut him some slack how, they're princes and, they're royalty and the world is their oyster. And some of them are only thinking about the pleasures of being a prince. But if only more of them would take it seriously, that'd be great. Um, there was a nice little joke here that was funny. I'm not going to get into it. This is why you should read it. But pretty much, Prince John Freeman is talking to the brother that got his leg shot off. Starts talking to Prince John Freeman, and Prince John Freeman makes a joke out of the fact that he shot his leg off, and everybody starts laughing about it. One of my favorite parts, one of my favorite personal pieces of art, comes up right here, and it's not even the most detailed art. And I'm sure, actually, I'm not sure. Maybe Dragata didn't use any references, but I do like how he went out of his way to make all of the different princes have their own distinct styles and whatnot, like from the different haircuts to the styles. And he even used it to kind of go through the different time periods of like black fashion and stuff like that. So we got some sideburns and like some Afro style things, kind of remind me of like Enter the Dragon with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and we got some all different types of cuts and everything. But the king just yells and is like, enough of this laughing. He brought them there to have that dinner to see who could truly be worthy of the throne. And he feels like everybody is just taking life being a little too cavalier. No one's being serious enough, realizing the true opportunity of what they have. Everybody looks at the throne as just being a way that they can more certainly with that and affirm their will and have more pleasure instead of realizing the responsibility of a king and how the king is responsible to his people, although being fully autonomous, responsible to all these different lives and stuff that he has underneath him. And he basically tells all of them to get out except for Prince John Freeman, and he shakes John Freeman down and he's like, you know, basically, are you going to be serious? What are your intentions? And he pretty much lets him know, like, hey, I'm not going to stop with this chosen stuff. This chosen stuff is what I believe, and we have to remember that the king did send out Prince John Freeman to Cheveo of the Endless Nation and the chosen to get trained, to make him more deadly and to make him more of a match for people that would come up against him. But in doing so, Cheveo did put the message into John Freeman, and that's where John Freeman's bond with Wolf, and while they consider each other's brothers, that's where that came from. So in a way, the king is partly responsible for how Prince John Freeman turned out. It's not all just Prince John Freeman being rebellious. And he says, it's what I believe. It's not nonsense. And Prince tells him, or the king tells him, believe in me. You got to take over the throne one day, and you won't have the luxury of just being able to go off on whatever whim that you believe in. You'll have to answer to the people. And pretty much John Freeman says, F the crown, dad, and F you. And he just walks out. And the king asks his vizier, tell me, truly, vizier, is my blood really this thin and weak? And she doesn't answer. So we see that later the king hops on, like, because the Ranger Thomas left basically a way to contact him, like a little holocron, if you will, if you're into the Star Wars persuasion. And the king uses it, calls up Ranger Thomas, and says, I want to talk to you about justice. Later on at the Black Tower, we finally cut over to Archibald, and he's there with his niece who had gotten wounded as they were trying to get through the first child of the throne or whatever. Basically, that badass like assassin lady that was part of the PRA in the House of Mao. Belle Solomon comes in. They exchange some backhanded compliments, pretty much, is what Archibald has for him. And he's basically letting him know, like, hey, Archibald, this is partly your fault while she's in this state. You wanted to be the president, and this is kind of, what she suffered because of your greed. And Archibald lets him know, like, the presidency, you thought it was just to be the president? I have much bigger plans at hand. Later, we cut back to the kingdom again. So we're back into the kingdom of New Orleans. Prince John is going into his room, and he hears a click, like, someone, squeezing almost to the point of letting the hammer release on a gun. And he looks around, and it's the vizier. It's his girlfriend. And he's like, what are you doing, my love? She says, please don't move, John, not 1 inch. And put your hands away from your gun. And he says, you think I would shoot you? We both know better than that. She says, I do now. She says, I do know. Just don't move. And we find out that Ranger Thomas has him in his sniper crosshairs from another building across the line, or across the way. And sure enough, he says, smile for me, Prince. Blam! There. And now only 2 more to go. Another one of the chosen has fallen. The vizier gets the buzz on her wrist communication device from the from the king. And the king says his line. Now tell me, vizier, how many sons do I have? 13, my king. 13. There you go, Ash.
Damn. I don't know what to think about this. This was another really good issue. This one had a lot of the meat on the bone for the whole overarching, story that's going on. We get to see that the Texas Ranger gets his revenge ultimately through plotting with the king, and the vizier basically putting John in a trap. That was kind of heartbreaking because earlier in the issue he's like asking her to run away with him and like just leave the kingdom behind. And so you see this is like, look, let's just go, like, and she's like, John, you're a prince, like, and you kind of covered that where she's loyal to the crown. She would not run away with him, or rather, she at least talked him out of it. And when push came to shove, when the king came calling and said, you kill my son, she couldn't pull the trigger, but she didn't have to. All she had to do was lure him into place, and that was kind of messed up. I did like this opening scene here where he shows up against the other sons, and they're just, this reminds me, I see this in real life too, the wannabe thugs, it's so funny because I had just seen on Twitter some kid flashing money, and like it was like a meme, like they're like what are they saying, like the Gucci belt makes it, so it's like this kid, he's like all hard on the tree, he's like flashing all these bills, but he's got like this Gucci belt, and it was funny. That's what these kids remind me of. And I love the line that he uses, playing hard at being hard. um, yeah. Um, the other thing that got me about this was a kind of a question. And that was at the end here when he shoots. He says, now only 2 more to go. Take a look in his visor. When did these others die?
He shot Cheveo in the Sea of Bones. That's where him
Oh,
and Death
that's right.
fought.
This is Cheveo, not. I was thinking this was oh, what's his name? Wolf's cousin. I'm forgetting his name already. The guy they left in charge of the Union.
The guy that they left in charge of the Union.
Yeah, I was thinking that was him. Yeah, remember in the last issue?
Yeah, Bodaway.
Bodaway. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
right. And then who's this first person?
That I can't quite see here. Let me go over to my book because I had actually closed my book. Here. Closer look that. Oh, that's Ezra.
Okay, that's right.
Ezra O'Brien,
So
the keeper of
Ezra
the
the
message.
prophet, who became the Word and got swallowed by Wolf.
By Wolf.
And then okay, very good. So these are accounted for. My addled brain. Yeah, and then this shot here, just man, sucks to be loyal to higher callings. I guess I don't know what to feel for her, but I guess she made her bed. This is
pretty much.
Yeah, this ended on like a damn moment. I expected Freeman to go out bigger, but this kind of worked too. Hey, I find myself kind of at a loss for words on this last issue. A lot of it was really just characterization and development. That's hard to speak on, but there's only 2 more volumes left, and I am super thrilled. I find myself getting closer and closer to the end, and I'm just like, where is this gonna go? What's gonna happen? We got main characters dying off. This is epic. This is such an epic series. What are your thoughts? I mean, I know you kind of let me say so much because this is my first time going through, but at this point in the story, I guess what are the things that stood out to you, and if you can kind of maybe take yourself back to a place in time where you didn't fully know where the story was going and you were being impacted the first time.
I mean, I loved it. I mean, the prince pretty much didn't have any weaknesses except for this one, and this was the one that got exploited. Princes are, especially people that are so sure of themselves, have a tendency to, have themselves pretty well protected, but still, find a way to fall hard because it only takes one weakness or one soft spot in order to in order to fail, your Achilles heel, if you will, just that one soft area. So to me it was just masterful writing, because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, he's got the money, he's lethal, he doesn't really have like a bunch of true allegiances outside of the chosen itself. I thought if it was going to be any way that he would go down, it would be via something that happened directly within a meeting of the chosen. But this was a much better way to see him go out and go down. And I really liked how Ranger Thomas still was very much involved with it and got to continue to scratch off people on his list. I mean, people are falling. He's been responsible for 2 of the deaths now directly. Just Prince John Freeman and Cheveo, and then in the midst of other things happening, Madame LeVay went down because of the uprising, and then Ezra went down due to the conflict with Wolf. So like for me, not knowing which way it could go and really liking Ranger Thomas and really liking the Prince too. I mean, definitely it would have been kind of interesting to see him take a stand, because we saw how lethal he was with his pistol, especially in that one scene where he shot his brother's leg off and was kind of like taking out all of the signs. But at the same time, I don't think it would have been as good. Like, that's a personal thing that I would have wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would have served the story as well as this did. I feel like this was better, intricate writing and more of like, I'm going to take you on a journey with some more unexpected stopping points, as opposed to like, he's really good with the gun, make him go out in a blaze of glory with the gun. I don't know if it would have been as clever as this, so I liked this.
I have to agree with you. I think the more I think about how this ended up, the more I like this, that it's his weakness. Like you said, like it goes to show you that no one is invulnerable, right? No matter what you have, what gifts and talents and you know, what life has given you, like no matter how much privilege you have or whatever, no one is invulnerable. There's always things that can be exploited, and this was it. And man, who knew? It's just such a tragic way. And I think it's the contrast of him being such a badass to go out this way is what makes it work. If he had just been, you know, a regular Joe, you know, if Bell Solomon had gone out this way or something, you'd just be like, okay, whatever, right? But the fact that he didn't even get a chance to go down fighting, all the things that he had on his side, he didn't get to use. And that just, I don't know, that's an interesting way. And he's had his moments of glory. So if you like the character, which I agree, he's one of my favorite characters too. If you want to see that character have his moments of glory, he definitely had them. And he got it in this book. He got to kind of relive it in that joke that he makes to his brother, you know. What was the joke? I offer you a hand and you ask me for a foot. That's a funny joke. But yeah,
that was a funny joke.
Yeah, it reminded you of how bad, because you go back to that scene, you're like, oh yeah, man, he was badass. And whew. Well, that is the end. What's this last white pages? I can't read it on my silly laptop screen, which doesn't have good contrast.
And I'm reading it out of the hardcover, and it was nothing. So it might just be exclusive to the issue. And I didn't read out of the issues, because I didn't read this at all on my tablet. I read it out of the hardcover completely.
Oh, it's the same one. We would tell you to pray, but it wouldn't do you any good.
Oh, there you go. Yep. So
the
again, the quote from which was a quote from the guys anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is East of West 38. That wraps up volume 8. It's an entire trade paperback of East of West. Guys, I cannot tell you again, I mean, how good this book is. Going over it, I don't feel like we're doing it justice. If you have not read these books and you're just sort of here listening to us discuss them, it might probably come across like, oh, this is kind of interesting, or maybe it's a little boring. But honestly, when you read them yourself, it plays so much better than what we talk about. Hickman's writing style, he gets these characters. They all feel so different. They all feel alive. They're brimming with personality, whether you love them or you hate them. Sometimes you root for them to be victorious. Sometimes you root for them to get what's coming to theirs. But all the time you care. And that's what the big importance is. And the variety of his writing style from issue to issue, he'll write issues that are just completely action packed. Like what it was, like one of your favorite issues. And also one of mine, I think it was issue 22, the assassin raid. That was such a cool, fun, just like commando style raid that was just action and straightforward. And then you'll get these thematic pieces about humanity and life and commentary on civilization and things like that, that if you care about that stuff, you're going to get it. And I know not everyone does. Some people just want straightforward, wham, bam, thank you, man. Well, not, maybe not that. No, some people do want that too, but you know what I'm saying? Like they just want, but there's so much here. It's a variety, and it never outstays its welcome. I could go on and on about these books. I think I just feel like I'm just repeating myself. Hopefully this is something you're gonna, you know, pick up for yourself. Hopefully you have read these or are reading along with us. That's why we do this every 2 weeks. It's a new volume, and get to come here, listen to us talk about them, share the excitement, get to enjoy it, you know, permeating your fandom of pop culture and fiction and different things. So far, this is definitely the best thing I have read from Jonathan Hickman, and I'm looking forward to reading more. Do you have any final things to say about East of West or anything else?
Buy this book. Buy the issues. Buy the trades. Buy the hardcovers. Um, we're getting social again. Things are slowly going back to the way life used to be. We're gonna have cons. You're gonna see Hickman at cons. You're gonna see Dragata at cons, and you know, take this good story to them. Let them know how you enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe buy it from them, but these are the stories that people don't always get the freedom to tell at the big two, which is part of the reason why we have this show in the first place. To appreciate the stories where people are unrestrained, unchained, and get to tell their stories on their own terms. And blood, sweat, and tears went into this. Shout out to Frank Martin Jr., you know, for the awesome coloring. Shout out to Russ Wooten for doing his things, you know, on the words. It's not a perfect book, but it's a damn good book. So support stuff that's good so we can get more stuff. And the more support we get from these things, they do get turned into TV shows and movies and all that stuff because they see that there's an audience there. So that's my only thing is just support good art, support great indies, support East to West. And you're already supporting us if you're listening to this or watching this, or you know, post it in the chat right now or post the comments of the video because you're watching the VOD. We greatly appreciate everybody showing up and showing out and participating in at any level that they do. But we're highlighting these books to y'all so you can, you know, support these books if they do speak to you. And if they don't, hopefully some of the other stories that we'll be covering or that we do cover, you know, we'll catch you here because I believe there's 3 fantastic indie books out there for everybody who would take the time to invest just a little bit of time in looking for them or come onto these shows, go into boards, ask your comic shop owners when you go in. I know the big 2 books that I want to get, but what are some indies that you've been reading that you're excited about? And support those creators because they make a lot more money off of their indie books when you support those than when you buy their books from the big 2. And sometimes maybe if they sell enough issues to reach past the threshold, they might get some kickback, some residuals on the back end. But this is the stuff that goes more directly to their pocket. And these are the stories that they're truly and utterly dying to tell. So please support them.
Well said. Well said. Now, I think East of West is coming back in stock for the hardcovers, by the way. I was just in the middle of looking while you were talking. I was hoping to be to be fast. You can get volumes 1 and 2 for sure on Amazon. Looks like Cheap Graphic Novels has volumes 2. I thought I saw 1. Yeah, 1 and 2 are also available on Cheap Graphic Novels. 3 should not be hard to find because it's the newer one. But yeah, under $50, and you're getting multiple trades, 3 to 4 trades per hardcover. They're nice and thick. I have got the 3rd volume. I need to fill my hole for the first 2. I mean, I already have these in digital format, but this is so good. I want to have them on my shelf in that deluxe hardcover. And if you're into these, I'm telling you, this is a book you're going to cherish, and it's something I definitely want to read again and again. So that's a sign of a good book to me. We're going to wrap up this stream. I want to remind everyone, read good comics, as always. Read Ed Brubaker. Hickman's not the only good writer out there. And if you aren't particularly a hard sci-fi kind of person, perhaps you want more straightforward type of stories, a little bit more emotional, Ed Brubaker is a good person to choose. And we're going to be doing Criminal Cast Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be covering Cruel Summer. It is the 2019 Criminal series covering issues 1 and then 5 through 12 of the floppies. If you have those, if you don't have the hardcover, you can read those or just get the hardcover book at your local comic book store. Support your local stores. It's a beautiful hardcover. We're going to cover it. Eric Breen and I believe Nalo should be there as well. I haven't heard from him yet, but we'll be covering that book and geeking out all over that. So come join us Wednesday night. Grab your favorite drink and some favorite snack and hang out with us. And Skip, I'm going to give you the last words and we're going to close this. Hang it up.
Buy more indie comics, read more indie comics, and come back in 2 weeks because we'll be talking about more indie comics. Or you can just come back in 2 days too when we're talking about Ed Brubaker indie comics. Bye.